Breaking right now, an explosion rocks a hospital, an all-out emergency in a tiny Texas town. Good evening, I'm Cynthia Izaguirre.
I'm John McKay. We just learned one person died in that explosion, and some victims have been taken to Parkland here in Dallas. So this is happening at Coryell Memorial Hospital. That's west of Waco. It's in the city of Gatesville. We have a crew there gathering video and information.
Meantime, Kevin Reese has been monitoring the information coming out of Gatesville from our newsroom. Kevin, we just saw a news conference. What are officials saying?
Well, this is what we know so far. As you mentioned, there has been one confirmed fatality in this explosion that happened at about 3 o'clock this afternoon at Coryell Memorial Hospital. All of those injured, and there are about a dozen in all, are told to be construction workers who are working on an expansion of that hospital. But again, one person injured, one person killed in this explosion, 12 people injured, all of them construction workers, and some of them suffering very serious burns, and some of them being brought here to Parkland in Dallas for treatment. And some of the pictures and video we're getting, it's obviously substantial explosions sending both smoke and shrapnel into the air. Witnesses at the scene say it was a portion of that hospital under construction that a generator or a boiler exploded. There's also been mention by the emergency management chief of a gas line that they're looking at. And the Office of Emergency Management also confirming to us that a partial building collapse happened at that construction site as well. And as a result of the severity of that explosion, power was knocked out in parts of downtown Gatesville and at the Coryell County Courthouse. So as many as 12 people injured, one person killed, all of them taken to other hospitals in Waco, Temple, and now here in Dallas. And as you see people being treated there, those are people at a nearby nursing home. Power was knocked out there as well. They have been getting help from a local church. None of those people injured, but crews there helping them out as power has been knocked out to that nursing home as well. Work on a major expansion of that hospital in Gatesville began a year and a half ago. We've been told that the area affected by this explosion did not yet house any patients. Again, what you're looking at right there were patients at a nearby nursing home where power has been knocked out. So confirming one person killed in this explosion, told to us as a construction worker, 12 others injured, being taken to hospitals, including here in Dallas. We'll have more information on this as the night goes on, online and here on TV. I'm Kevin Reese, the newsroom. Back to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Kevin. We have